Okay, this is a follow-up video to the post I did yesterday. So yesterday I did a post that I said, do you want to make more money? And so people started sending me messages, private messages saying, hey, what's the opportunity here? So this is not a biz up, okay? Not a biz opportunity for a bid. An MLM presentation at a hotel that I'm going to invite you and you're going to learn some really cool stuff. Oh my gosh. I'm not talking bad about MLMs per se, or network marketing, or whatever you want to call it. Heck, I am talking bad about it, but man, it just drives me a little crazy that they promote all this stuff like you're gonna win the lottery. Well, of course, if you win the lottery, you might potentially have this great lifestyle, but the lottery is probably not a sound strategy for retirement, right? Anyways, we'll put that aside. So no, this is not a business opportunity. We're doing whatever you're doing. If you're creative, if you really think about what really you're part of, and this really is going to go down deep into what person you are, probably. So that's the reason that most people don't want to go there. But anyways, we'll talk a little bit about that. So this is not any of that. So if you're an employee, maybe you have a job and you want more money, right? You ask for a raise. That's what you do. Now, you might say, well, Gabe, of course, I already knew that, but, they're not going to give me more money. Well, how do you know? Have you asked for a raise? And if you have, and they haven't given you enough money, what were your arguments to make more money, right? Hey, I want a raise. Well, why? Why should they give you a raise, right? We'll talk about that. If you employ people, if you have people working for you, how could you make more money? I was talking to a guy who has a couple of e-commerce ventures that he's trying to make more money. I also have a friend. She has like a sort of a multi-purpose kind of an office that helps people with insurance, with real estate, these kinds of things. And so I'm helping her. I'm gonna detail some of that, and I'm gonna tag her actually too about what the kinds of things we're doing. So I'm kind of helping her as a consultant, and maybe even as a business partner. We don't know that. We're still working that in. So I'm going to talk about that. If you are in sales, maybe you are in sales in real estate perhaps, or in cars, or maybe you own like a brick and mortar store or a restaurant. I was talking to a friend also. He owns a couple of restaurants with some business partners, and he also does some sales stuff. And he was like, oh, how can we make more money, right? So make more money. Now, this isn't really all about money. Okay, and so you might be like, well, Gabe, you're talking about money, and for a lot of people, that's kind of like a taboo. We don't really talk about money, but we're talking about productivity. We're talking about how can we do more with less, or how can we do more with what we already have? And isn't that what life a lot of times is really all about, right? How can we be more happy with what we have than we are right now? Right? How can we enjoy it more? How can it fulfill us more? Right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And money and business is sort of a game, so to speak. And money is what we use to keep track of the score. That's all it is. So, anyways, I'm gonna check to make sure that this is working. It should be working. And there we go. Okay, nice. So, let's talk about this. So how is it that, again, if you're an employee, if you're an employer, if you are in sales, if you're a consultant, maybe you help people, or maybe you have your own store, maybe you have your business, maybe you're in a corporate environment and you're kind of in mid-management and you want to move up. What are the kinds of things that we need to do? So the best way that I can describe, or probably the best principle that I can talk about in this video, which if you know me even a little bit, you know that I can talk for hours. And but I want to try to keep it short. Let's talk about leverage, okay? I already have a video about leverage, but we're going to talk about the 5 leverage points, okay? Okay, the 5 leverage points. And this is really pertaining to business, but I'm going to relate it if you just have a job, or I shouldn't say just have a job, because having a job is a great thing. And we need employers, and in this culture that sometimes I'm involved with all these entrepreneurs, and everybody should be an entrepreneur. Well, yeah, but not everybody can be, and not everybody's equipped not only mentally but also emotionally. And maybe also in their situation might not, I have a friend here locally in Frisco that he works for, what does he work? He works for a big corporation. I think he mentioned it was AT&T, or it was a big communications corporation, and he's like, he just wrote one of his first novels, and he really wants to venture out on his own, but he's got like, house here in Frisco, which are not cheap, and then family, kids, and all that, so you can't just like jump out and see what happens, right? Burn your ships, like they say. So having a job is good, and so how can you get better at that? So that's good. Also, if you have employees, how can you get more out of them? If you are in sales and you want to make more money, all these kinds of things. These are all leverage points. So Archimedes was the one that said, if you give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, I can move the world, right? So a lever, or a leverage point, is something that you can use. You can apply a certain amount of energy and you get more as an output, right? So like a screwdriver, right? You're trying to get this little tiny screw to turn, right? If you try to do that with your fingers, it hurts, right? And it's almost impossible. But if you use a screwdriver, you're using the force of a larger area concentrated on a smaller point. So that essentially turns your strength that you have into a lot more, even though it's the same. That's what a leverage point is, okay? So the first leverage point is people, okay? And if you already run a business, you know this is either a headache or something that it's very important, or both, right? And so, and this happens a lot. So I'm going to detail all of them. We're going to talk a little bit about each one. So the next one, we can call them systems, okay? So systems are procedures that we do so we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, okay? We also have, let's call it marketing, okay? And you guys know I'll do a lot of this. Marketing. And then the next thing we can talk about is let's call it technology, because this is becoming a huge one these days. And then the last leverage point is money itself, okay? And then hopefully what you do is you make more of this so you can invest more on that, on everything else, okay? And if you start spending the money, then you're gonna stay where you are, and you never stay where you are. You get behind, right? Second law of thermodynamics, entropy. Things break down, right? When Alice tumbles down the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland and she meets the Red Queen, right? The Red Queen being sort of nature, she says that everybody here runs as fast as you can just to stay in one place, right? So that's what happens. I don't know if you guys know this, but the average growth of a company is 5%. That means that they're spending 95% of everything they do just to survive, just to stay in the same place where they are. It's very hard to think to grow. Okay, so let's talk about these different ones. And talking about people. So in people, we're going to talk about you as an individual. If you have a job, if you are a member of a team, and you want to make more money. Okay, so one of the things that I always tell people, if you want to make more money, is ask for a raise. Of course, that sounds a lot easier than it is. And I think there's a lot of reasons why that's the case. But one of the main reasons, I believe, is that they're not making a case for them to make more money. So, in other words, are you familiar with the economic system of the business that you're a part of? Okay? And what do I mean by that? The reason that people hire you, or the logical reason why people should hire, is because you're going to hire somebody, and that person is going to produce a lot more money than they're going to cost me as a business owner. That's the logical reasons. Like, I don't hire anybody unless their productivity exceeds what they're going to be asking in return. And in return, I'm going to give them a security of having a certain amount of money, or having that opportunity. Maybe it's a lot harder to start something from scratch than to be a part of a team. So that's the trade that we're doing. So a lot of people do really bad at whatever job they're doing, okay? And this is just a reality. Sometimes I get hired to fire people. And, this sounds terrible, and some people say, well, Gabe, how can you live with yourself? I actually enjoy it. because I believe it's an opportunity for the employer to, get rid of a person that's not performing, and even for the employee who's probably always thinking when they come in, oh my gosh, is it today the day I'm gonna get fired? Most people that get fired already know that thing is coming from like, a mile away, and they're unhappy because nobody wants to do a bad job. I mean, who wants to do a bad job at something? I don't think anybody goes that, man, I can't wait to do a bad job today. I don't think so. I think people get sort of emotionally attached, and they kind of feel like there's no way out and all that, which I'm going to address in just 1 second, okay? So let's talk about people, the leverage point from the perspective of the employee. So if you're an employee, if you have a job, listen up, this is for you. You're going to ask for more money, but you need to make a case. You need to know how much money, or a ballpark, how much money you are generating, okay? And then you're going to become acquainted, or you have to, or you should become acquainted with the economic system of the thing that you're a part of, okay? So you can say to your employer, look, I want more money. I am generating this much. And what are the things that we need to do? I don't know what your margins are. You don't have to tell me. But what are the things that I can do as an employee to generate more money? And generally, a smart business owner will go, oh, wow, this is cool. Yeah, these are the kinds of things that, I'm glad you asked. I actually need help with this, or actually need help with that. You never know. You'd be surprised if you ask how it clicks with people that, yeah, they need help with this other thing. I remember when I had a job, and I went to my boss and I said, look, I wanted to grow, I want to do these kinds of things. And she was like, you know what? There's a thing that we're trying to do where we're going to need help with this. And I said, look, and I can do this and I can do that. So I made the case, and not as convincingly as I think I would be able to do it now. So that's one. However, there's another class of bosses that would not like this, and they will get kind of scared, especially if you start asking about their economic systems, and oh my gosh, they don't want to tell you. Everything is a big secret, because they're probably paying you a lot less than they probably know that they should, or all these kinds of non-transparent situations that people get themselves in. So I don't advise that. And so here's the other thing. You always, as an employee, you need to have options. Okay? You need to have options. You cannot negotiate if you cannot say no. Right? You cannot ask for a raise if you cannot say, well, if I don't get a raise, then these are the consequences. And you don't have to be me. You have to say, I'm going to slash your tires or anything. What I'm saying is, this is the productivity that I can deliver, and that you've seen that I can deliver. You're going to have to bring somebody in who may be able to deliver more than me. Maybe the same, maybe less. So, but if you don't have options, then what are you going to do? Go out there and ask for a raise and go, well, if you don't give me a raise, I'm quitting. And they say, well, then quit. Oh, just kidding, right? Like, you can't say that. So you need to have options. So one of the things that I always tell people that I talk to is, have your CV ready, right? Have that thing polished, man. So like, I was talking to a friend, his name is Michael. He's a recruiter for top engineering level businesses, also IT. And so these are people, he places people in companies that, earn $300,000 a year, right? So these are not like easy jobs to get. Right? And so he tells me, Gabe, I see the stacks of resumes, of CVs. I grab each one, and I have exactly 5 seconds to figure out if this is the person or not. If not, I just move on to the next. And it really is that crazy. Another thing you need to know is that in just about anything that you are going to apply for, are going to try, any kind of opportunity, the rate of rejection is about 90 to 95%. This is something I wish somebody would have told me in school, that this is true. So if you apply for 5 jobs, or if you apply for 5 opportunities, or 5 scholarships, or 5 grants, or if you go out on 5 dates, and that's especially true in dates, right? Each one would represent 20%, right? So if you go out on 5 dates, that we call that not statistically significant. This doesn't tell us, right, if the rate is about 90 to 95%, this does not tell us if we're in the right track or not. If maybe our breath stinks on a date, or maybe our resume is not right, it's not saying the right things, right? Also, Michael told me that his personal resume that he uses, it took him 80 hours to polish it and to get it just perfectly. Okay, I'm not saying you should spend 80 hours on your resume. What I'm saying is that this stuff is hard and you need to do it a lot. There needs to be a lot of iteration. Okay? Now, the reason that a lot of people don't do this is because they have to set their own standards of what their goal is, to make more money, to do these kinds of things. And so that part of their life becomes very clear, and they don't want it to be very clear because it is also very clear if they're not accomplishing it. So it's always better to kind of make it very vague, and I wake up every day and kind of, well, I'll see what I do today, and so I can go to bed at night and not feeling bad that I didn't do what I'm supposed to do. So a life of purpose, a life of meaning is also a life of responsibility. It just comes with it. But if you do that voluntarily, man, it will be a huge difference. And I can tell you because I went through that process. I went through the process of not taking responsibility for anything, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but instead of these kinds of things that I want to do to help members of my family, to help other friends of mine that I have, the people that I care about, the rest I don't, but these people, it's not a load like, oh my God, I have this thing, but it's a privilege that I get to do that. So anyway, so that's important. Set your own goals, get ready, have options, polish your CV. So you can always be looking for opportunities. So you can always be going around and finding the next thing. In the economy that we have today, and I was just working on the manuscript for my book, that's one of the things that I'm talking about all the time there. Look for opportunities. Keep looking. And as a companies too, there's a great book here. Rita Guthrie McGrath, The End of the Competitive Advantage. She teaches strategy at Columbia, I believe. And she talks about this new thing that companies need to, and this is not a new book, this is like 2013, but I tell you, most companies are like not even close to this. But basically what she talks about is having to look for that new opportunity, and so you'll re-engage, you'll optimize, you'll make it better, you'll make as much profit, money, revenue, whatever you want to call it, benefit from that, but then you also need to be looking for that next loop. You're going to go to the next thing that you're going to optimize, or you're going to engage and optimize and go all the way around and around and around, because things are changing that quickly. And if you just think that you're going to settle on one thing and then everything is going to be fine, then things are not going to work. Okay? Now, people, as far as if you're an employer, if you employ people, you probably already know that people is the top. This is the best leverage point. Right? This is the most useful. But it's also could be your biggest headache. Right? No doubt about it. And maybe it already is your biggest headache. Now, there are many reasons for that, and I can't address every possible reason here, but I'm going to detail a little bit of that. So, one of the reasons is that you might not have good systems in place to put the people in, okay? So, let me give you an example. You might have an extensive period of training, right? You might have this, it's almost like ceremonies. You almost don't want to hire anyone because you remember how much of a headache it is to take somebody from 0 to 10, and then they quit a month later, and you're ready, to shoot yourself, right? And in a good, metaphorically, not literally. So. And this happens a lot. So there's basically 2 ways that you can optimize to get people in your company if you are an employer, okay? So way number 1 is you put them in a rotation. And way number 2 is you keep them till you die, basically. Okay, and they're both strategies that work, and they're both important, but they're both different, and they both have their pros and their cons, and they're probably more ways, but the way you would choose really depends a lot more on, man, really depends on a myriad of things, on your business model, on your margins, even on your values. So it's up to you. But let me detail them. So, and I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do for my friend here. That I think it would be really helpful for us. So the first one is let's go with number 2 first. Keep them till you die. So you basically want to find the best people you possibly can, and you're going to pay them a lot of money. You're going to overpay them. That's what you're going to do, because that's what you should do, right? And because a really good person is not like 2 times or 5 times better than a bad one. A good person is something like 100 or 1,000 or more, like 1,000 times better than somebody who's bad. And this is crazy. If you guys have a chance, look up Price Law. Price Law says that half of the productivity of a company is created by the square root of its employees. Basically, if you have 10 employees, then maybe 2 employees will do half the work. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because if you have 10 employees, maybe those 2 employees are you, maybe the founder, and then somebody, maybe you have a business partner, and basically you guys do all the work, and everybody kind of does the rest of, the other 8 people do the other 50%, right? And that happens a lot. But if you have 100, if you have 1,000, the numbers skew out crazy, right? You can have 30 people that do the work of 100 or 1,000. So this is crazy, and this happens a lot. So that's why it's so important. If you want, so for a lot of companies are doing this, like tech companies. It's crazy to see that these companies cannot keep this good programmers, good engineers, good, for example, AI research. When we talk about technology, right? AI is a big leverage point that is coming, man, and it's crazy because this is just gonna get crazy so fast. Anyway, so definitely, this, you have to figure out if this is the thing, right? The bad thing is when you do something in between, right? You want to get the best people, but you don't really want to pay them too much. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you don't want to pay your employees too much, then put them on a rotation, right? And what is a rotation? This is probably what we're gonna be doing with my friend. So she's been struggling with this for a while. And so what you want to do is you want to simplify the system as much as you can, right? And kind of synthesize really what they're going to do, so that training and onboarding is easy as it can be. And then you're basically, when I say rotation, I mean you're always hiring. You're always bringing people in, right? If you've ever been to maybe turn an application or turning something, and they tell you, oh, we're always hiring here. Right? If they say that, it's because they're doing this. They're always rotating people, because they know that people are gonna come and go, and that's fine. And this is not necessarily bad. Okay, so don't think, well, this is treating your employees bad. Well, if you feel that way, then you're stuck, right? Because that your values are gonna crash, and things are gonna get weird. So then go with the other one and see if you can make it work. But this is not necessarily bad if they can come in and they can work, and if they can get better, they can learn some skills, they can learn about the industry, they make some connections, and they can make a little bit of money, and then if they have to move on to something else, that's fine too. And there's people who have that personality. I know as a consultant, I'm always looking for projects, so really, I'm on a rotation a little bit, right? I'm not looking for like a high quality job, and I get offered positions. Just recently, I got offered like $150,000 a year position in Austin, and I had to turn it down because it's not because it's a bad opportunity, but because like I would be miserable going to an office every day. I can't do that, right? So that's the other thing. So I can go on a rotation. I don't feel too bad about it, right? I have clients that fire me, quote unquote, and then they hire me again because of whatever's going on. They're trying to fix their numbers, and they don't have to pay my health insurance. I take care of that. They don't have to pay taxes. I take care of that. They don't have to pay all these other benefits or retirement or anything. I take care of that. So anyways, so rotation is not necessarily bad. Now, for example, businesses that use rotation, restaurants, right? I was thinking about this earlier when I was thinking about recording this video. So I was a waiter for a long time, and I was really young, I was like 19 or something, and so I was a waiter. So waiters always, they're on a rotation. Now, this is a little bit different if you're a cook in the restaurant. And I remember I used to talk to the other waiters there and in the restaurant, thinking, I figured out why they always blame everything on the waiter. And so the other waiters would sell, because like I was a part of this team that we opened this restaurant in Louisville, here in it's close to Dallas, and so anyways. And it was kind of fun because we had this crazy busy days, and then we would go to the Applebee's down the road and we would drink beer, right? I wasn't supposed to drink beer, but anyways, that's a different story. So what was interesting was that we had these conversations about the business model, and I realized, look, they're always blaming it on us because they can always fire a waiter. They can always get rid of the waiter. But if the problem is the kitchen, if the problem is the restaurant, then people are not going to come back. So it's one of the models that restaurants uses, rotation, because waiters they're there, they make a little bit of money that night, they come in and with less money and they go out with more money, sometimes in cash. So there you go, and then go off to your next opportunity. And a lot of people do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so that's the other thing you can do. Let's talk a little bit about the other things. I don't know how long I've been doing this, but let's briefly discuss some of these things that we can do. And I just wanted to show you this because it is about being creative with what you already have, instead of thinking that there's something like some kind of external force, or your situation is kind of hopeless, or kind of if you feel kind of stuck. Now, if you run your own business, it's completely normal to feel this way. As a matter of fact, it's good that you feel this way. Why? Because the person who runs a business usually is not the same person that starts a business. Now, if you started your own business and you're running it, please don't take offense of what I'm saying, okay? Just listen to me, and if you agree or if you disagree, I respect you either way. But I've seen the literature, and it's pretty clear. Because starting a business, starting a venture requires a lot of out-of-the-box imagination, risk, a certain level of risk tolerance. That running a business requires more consistency, dependability, requires a sort of focus, sort of a stability, and sort of polishing, detail. Is a different kind of mind, okay? And that's the other thing that I forgot to mention when we talked about people. The other reason that a lot of people can't find good people, and maybe they say they have bad people, is because they literally do not understand other people. And now, before you say, well, okay, of course I understand other people. What I mean is not like you understand them like you feel them, but that you understand the way they work. I remember when I used to have a job, I was never really appreciated for the things that I brought to the table, and I felt I wasn't appreciated. Also, I felt that what a lot of people brought to the table wasn't that great. I thought, I could do that, right? But I was being wronged, and I was wrong. It was both sides, because most of the time, you cannot appreciate something that you do not see, right? Obviously. So there are people who are a lot more strategic, a lot more creative, a lot more big picture, right? That's kind of like what I bring to the table. But then there's other people who are more down to earth, more specific, more down to the task. And you need both. Really, you need all these kinds of people. Chances are, if you're the only person that is working, you're hiring people that are just like you, because you appreciate the things that they can bring. But chances are you need people who are not like you, who you probably will have arguments with. And that's important. And in this culture of political correctness, and everybody needs to be in a safe space, and we should not talk to anybody that offends our point of view, then this is really going to get messed up. But trust me, the magic happens in that disagreements, in those kinds of things. Emotional responses are like low resolution decisions that our brains make when they can't compute an answer to a situation, right? Because we're not machines. We can't sit there trying to solve a problem that we can't solve, and then we're just stuck there forever. We just say, the hell with this, I'm mad, I'm leaving, and you leave, right? That's your emotional response. Your brain saying, look, we can't solve this. Let's get out of here, okay? So, but also, it's important in you realizing, look, what kind of person do I need for the system that I've optimized, right? So if your system is, so for example, my friend, she's very charismatic. She's a great salesperson. She meets people. And if she starts to hire people like her, and trying to implement a system that is made for somebody who has good follow through, who's dependable, who just kind of gets down to the task, then if she starts to hire somebody like her, it's not gonna happen, right? Because even her, she doesn't follow her own systems because she doesn't need to. She's got her own. That's not where her strengths are, and that's what I always tell my clients. And sometimes my consulting clients become my coaching clients. I say, look, you need coaching, because we don't know what is it that we're doing. So I was talking to a friend over the weekend, and I told her, look, people pay me to ask these questions. So let me ask them to you right now. I said, how do you learn? Do you know how you learn? And she was like, no, I'm not really sure. So well, that's a first big important. That's a video. Oh, by the way, I have basically posted all the good videos, I guess, that I like in my website, GabeBautista.com. So if you go to the blog up there, you'll see them all. So if you want it, because it's kind of hard to find them in my Facebook feed. But anyways, so that's the other thing. So let me briefly talk about marketing, technology, and money. We don't really need to talk about, but maybe say that this sometimes. So when I was putting my thing saying, look, if you want to make more money, let me know. A lot of times this is the answer. You need investors, right? I have a friend who has a company who is basically a software that he created for hiring people or selecting people, right? It's called Sort Smart, right? Sort Smartly, and he wants to include AI. So basically, he's trying to disrupt this incredibly entrenched and bureaucratic system, which is great, except that it's going to take a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of time to get. People are not wandering around asking for somebody to change their minds. People don't like for anybody to change their mind. So, look at that. I have some comments. Oh, hi Felipe, how are you? So, anyways, great. So let's talk about marketing real quick and technology. So marketing is another leverage point that you can do. So when I ask people, I remember I used to be in this networking group, and when I hear people say, well, word of mouth is the best kind of marketing. Well, yes and no. In other words, word of mouth is not really marketing, right? Word of mouth is word of mouth. And I explain it, because if marketing was word of mouth, then what we need to do as business owners, we just hire people to go out and talk to other people about us, which is, by the way, how MLMs are constructed, right? And but of course they don't pay them, or they say, look, you're gonna get. I was watching this MLM presentation that somebody was doing, broadcasting live on Facebook, and I was just grabbing my face like, oh my God, really, people are believing this? So the guy was saying that he used to work for this law firm, and his commissions for I don't know what were 3 or 5% or whatever, and he was saying that in this business the commissions were 25%. Yeah, but it depends percentage of what, right? If you have 3% of $1 billion is a lot more than 25% of 100. So, anyways, maybe that was too much. So that's the thing. Marketing is not really word of mouth. Marketing is there to enhance, to turbocharge the word of mouth. I mean, we can work out the numbers right now, real quickly. Look, you hire 10 people, and you're gonna pay them $10 an hour, right? That's $100. You want them to go out and talk to people for 8 hours. That's $800 that you're gonna spend, right? So $800. If you spend $800 on these 10 people, how many people do you think they talk to? Okay? I don't know. You make a number, right? Maybe 20, maybe or something. So if 20, maybe it's 200 people that they talk to. Maybe. Okay? Out of those 200 people, how many of those could be your customers, could be your prospects? Well, it doesn't matter. I don't know, because it depends on your business, right? So if these businesses are trying to sell, ovens, right? Then pretty sure if they go house to house, pretty much every house needs to have an oven. So maybe that's right. But if your business is something else, that you're not really gonna find people door to door like that, because you don't know if what whoever's that behind the door is needing what you have to offer, then you don't know. So you just spend $800. Can you spend $800 doing something else to reach more people? So that more people can say, hey, you know what? I might be interested on that. And the answer is, heck yes, yeah, you can do that. All right, how many flyers can you buy, or how many maybe presentations you can give? Even the things that we're doing online and social media. It's like basically you get space. I have some viewers, and some people are just listening to me because I'm talking, and so that's not costing me money directly. It's costing my time, which is not a little thing, but I like to do them, so that's why I'm doing it. So anyway, so marketing is that. What is your leverage point? So I'm talking to this insurance company that wants to do some Facebook advertising, which, as you know, I do a lot of, and I think it's basically your best ROI, return on investment vehicle for marketing right now. So he wants to know, okay, what's that return going to be? Because that's the leverage point, right? Okay, technology. When we talk about technology, we're really talking about anything that's breakthrough that you can use. And so like AI is a big one, and none of these technologies are like proprietary, like somebody else use them. Like if you go to AWS, if you don't know what AWS is, Amazon Web Services, you can actually use their space, their disk space. They have like AI systems that you can use, like facial recognition, so you can put your thing on top. So if you want to have facial recognition for employees at your job, you can use a lot their APIs and things like that, which is kind of cool, really cool. A lot of people don't know this, but Netflix runs on AWS. In other words, all the movies and all the shows that people watch on Netflix are all stored in Amazon's web servers. So it's not like Netflix are sitting around having to have all this hardware. Then they just outsource that to Amazon. So a lot of people don't know that. So that's technology. And then money. You want to use your money, the money that you have, to create a lot of this. And a lot of times, this is the defining factor, isn't it? And it's kind of interesting because I put a post earlier in the week saying that the fastest cure to your problems is when I tell my clients, look, this is going to cost money to fix them. And man, they feel better right away. They're like, oh wow, I don't think I have a problem anymore. Okay? So, and yeah, this happens a lot. And if you think about it, this is kind of like Monopoly. So if you ever play the game Monopoly, if you haven't, maybe you should play it. It's very much like real life, right? You have the dice, which are kind of like the fortuitous things that happen in the world, the unexpected things, and then you start moving around buying properties. But everybody starts with an amount of money. Now, the purpose of Monopoly is that if you start having these random transactions, eventually somebody ends up with all the money. And this is actually how economies actually work. If you are trying to figure out why the 1% or why the 1% of the 1% have basically all the money, it's because this is the way it works. Now, a lot of people, especially the Marxist types, they say that, well, this is capitalism that creates that, but it's actually a lot deeper than that. This is basically the way the universe works, is the way physical reality works. The inequalities always happens, because if you have just a slight advantage than the competition, just a little bit, and you iterate that many times, that's called a positive feedback loop. And so eventually you end up with all. So what's interesting is that all numbers can be multiplied except a very curious number, which is this one. 0, right? Once you get to 0, it's kind of hard to get out, right? And I'm not saying that I like this reality. I'm not saying that this is great and people, there's a lot of poor people, but really, general poverty, absolute poverty has been rising in last 5 years, last 10 years like crazy. Really, it is sort of relative poverty that's the biggest issue, because it can create a lot of violence when there's a certain amount of population who can't seem to get ahead, and there's another amount of the population that live close by who have all the money. Then yeah, you can have some conflict, some social conflict. But the problem is that nobody's really sure what exactly to do about this. This is a lot more complicated than what it sounds. But anyways, so once you get to there, right, just like in Monopoly, once you lose your money, well, you're done. You're out of the game. And that's the hard thing. So like even if you have a big idea, for example, my friend that has the SourceSmart, he is going to potentially have to put a lot of money into it. So we were talking about, well, how much money should I put into this idea? I was also talking to a friend of mine this morning about he has a couple e-commerce ventures, and we were talking about what the kinds of things he's doing, and he's basically operating, not at very high margins because he's he's trying different things. And so my question is like, well, how long should you go for, right? And how much money are you willing to bet on this, that this is going to give you a return? And essentially, it is a bet. Essentially, is what is your risk tolerance, and then are you going to be able to fulfill on that? And that's the problem, that especially as businesses grow, the more that businesses grow, right? So the way that I think about it is like, it's like a dinosaur, right? And so here's a dinosaur. Okay, so the more that they grow, the more money they are going to need, and this is scary. This is scary because when you first start a business, maybe you only need, $100,000, or maybe you only need $1 million, right? Jeff Bezos started with $1 million, right? He started with some savings from his parents, really, and himself. He drove himself down to Houston, I believe is where his family was living, with McKinsey. I think that's her name. His wife, and then they drove from there, from Houston, all the way down to Seattle. They went through the Grand Canyon. It's actually a really nice thing that is described in one of his biographies. Anyways, and so then he had to talk to 60 people to get $1 million. And so 22 of those 60 people said, yes, we're going to give you some money. So they gave him like $30,000, which in today's dollars is like $7 billion, which is not a bad return for 30,000, right? Anyways, so a lot of people are not willing to go to the next stage in their thing because it's going to cost them more money, right? They might have to hire a smart consultant for them to figure out, and a smart consultant doesn't work for free, and I might want participation in the business, and let's try this, let's try that, because I want to grow too, right? We're all here to grow, not because it's what makes it fun, right? It's like playing the game. I don't know. That's the way I look at it. Anyway, so these are the 5 leverage points that we talked about. This is how you can do more with what you already doing. Whatever it is that you're already doing. If you have a job, if you're part of a team, or if you have a business owner, think about those 5 things that we talked about. Especially people, because that's really going to be your biggest leverage point, no doubt. And then whatever you need to do to support that, right? Like with my friend, where we're going to systematize things so that we can support bringing these people on a rotation, and we can see some improvement, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. We don't have to train them for weeks on end, and you don't want to do that. You want to make it simple, but at the same time, that's going to require some work. It's going to require some work. And this is just the nature of it. Whoever tells you this is simple, this is super easy, copy my exact 7-step strategy to scale your company to $10 billion, right? There's no such thing. If it was simple, then everybody would do it. Everybody would do it. So it's not that simple. They're probably just interested in selling you stuff. So, but if you get the best people, this is why I always say to my clients, why would you not want to hire me? Like, you definitely want to have me on your side and trying to solve these problems that are going to come at us, because they're going to come. Every client that I have, there's stuff going on every week, right? And it's just the nature of it. And I like it because I think it's fun. Like, oh, let's try to solve this. And sometimes we solve it right away. Sometimes it takes us a while. But it's the same process. How can we use these different things for bigger benefit? Leave me a comment or send me a message, and let's go out there and make more, be more with what you already have. Bye-bye.